All right, today we're tackling one of the greatest digital mysteries of our time. It's a story about a ghost, a fortune worth $70 billion, and the technology that basically changed the world.
Yeah, it's the one question that has obsessed people for over 15 years. We're talking journalists, developers, you name it. Who is the person, or maybe even the group of people, who created Bitcoin and then just, poof, vanished into thin air?
And look, the stakes here, they couldn't be any higher. Satoshi Nakamoto is believed to be sitting on about 1.1 million Bitcoin. That's a fortune worth around $70 billion today. And the craziest part? Not a single cent of it has ever been touched.
So, let's just recap for a second. You've got the anonymous creator of a trillion-dollar asset, who also happens to hold one of the biggest fortunes on the planet, and who just completely disappeared. I mean, it's the kind of mystery that honestly sounds like it's straight out of a movie.
Okay, so what do we actually know for sure? Well, not a whole lot. We know Satoshi wrote the Bitcoin white paper. We know they mined the very first block, kicking the whole thing off. They chatted on some forums for a bit, and then in 2011 sent a final email basically saying, hey, I've moved on to other things. And that's it. Seriously, that's all we've got to go on.
But of course, the search for Satoshi never, ever stops. And now, a new HBO documentary called Money Electric has thrown a new name into the ring, pointing the finger at a pretty well-known developer in the crypto space.
So the documentary builds this case against Canadian developer Peter Todd. And it's all circumstantial, but listen to this. The theory goes that Todd might have accidentally replied to one of Satoshi's posts from his own account. And right after that little slip-up, both accounts went totally silent. On top of that, you've got shared British and Canadian spellings, similar technical ideas, and even their forum activity patterns seem to match up. It's a pretty compelling picture, even if it's not a smoking gun.
So what did Peter Todd himself have to say about all this? Well, as the speculation started to bubble up, he went on X and posted a very direct three-word denial. I'm not Satoshi. So, case closed, right? Not even close. This just adds another fascinating layer to the whole mystery.
Of course, Peter Todd is just the latest name to be added to a very, very long list of suspects. To really get what's going on here, we got to take a step back and look at the usual suspects, this lineup of geniuses who've been under the microscope for years.
And this is fascinating. It shows you what people were thinking just before the documentary dropped. Folks were literally betting millions of dollars on who HBO is going to name as Satoshi. And you can see the big names there. Finney, Adam Back, they were the front runners. But you know who you don't see on that list? Peter Todd. Yeah, HBO's pick came way out of left field for pretty much everyone.
So let's run through this rogues gallery, because each one has a really interesting connection. You've got Finney, who was the very first person to ever receive a Bitcoin transaction from Satoshi. Then there's Szabo, a computer scientist who actually created something called BitGold, which was kind of like a prototype for Bitcoin. Adam Back, another cryptographer, developed a key piece of the mining puzzle. And then there's Craig Wright, the Australian guy who famously claimed he was Satoshi, but has never, ever been able to provide the actual proof.
Okay, but hold on. There's another theory, a more recent one, that for a lot of people is way more compelling. What if Satoshi wasn't some obscure coder? What if they were hiding in plain sight this whole time, as one of the most famous tech CEOs on the planet? Yeah, let's talk about the case for Jack Dorsey.
Okay, this timeline is where the theory gets, kind of spooky. A single coincidence? Fine. It's a coincidence. But when you start stacking them up like this, it gets really hard to just brush them off. We're talking about key dates in Bitcoin's creation lining up perfectly with Jack Dorsey's birthday, his mom's birthday, his dad's birthday, and then Satoshi's final message comes just a month after Dorsey steps back into a huge leadership role at Twitter. I mean, come on. That is an absolutely wild pattern of connections.
And here's the kicker. When someone finally asked him, point blank, "Are you Satoshi?" Dorsey didn't just say no. Instead, he gave this super cryptic answer. That's not a denial, it's, I don't even know what it is. It's the kind of response that just pours gasoline on the fire and leaves that door for speculation wide, wide open.
All of this speculation brings us to a totally different question, and maybe it's the more important one. Let's stop asking who Satoshi is for a minute and start asking what would actually happen if they decided to come back and claim that $70 billion fortune.
I mean,
It is the ultimate what-if scenario for the entire crypto world, right? Just try to imagine one person suddenly having the power to sell roughly 5% of all the Bitcoin that will ever exist. What on earth would that do to the market?
And this right here is just a tiny, tiny fraction of that fortune. Researchers think Satoshi's coins are spread out across something like 22,000 different digital wallets. When you see it laid out like this, that abstract $70 billion number starts to feel a whole lot more real, doesn't it?
So the first thing everyone thinks is, oh no, the market would totally crash. But the reality is probably a little more complicated. Today's Bitcoin market is huge. We're talking billions of dollars traded every single day. So it could probably absorb that kind of selling pressure better than you'd think. Plus, just think about the logistics of trying to move money from 22,000 different wallets all at once. It would be a massive, complex headache. A sudden, catastrophic dump just isn't very likely.
And that actually brings us to our final and maybe the most important point of this whole story. Adam Back, one of those original suspects, he really said it best. No one knows who Satoshi is, and that's a good thing.
So, what if this whole search for Satoshi is missing the point entirely? What if the fact that we don't know who they are is actually Bitcoin's single greatest strength?
I mean, listen to Satoshi's own words right here. The whole reason they built Bitcoin was to create a system where you didn't have to trust a person or a bank or a government. It was always meant to be a system of rules, not rulers.
So think about it. By disappearing, Satoshi gave Bitcoin its greatest gift. They removed themselves as a central point of failure. Now there's no founder who can be pressured by governments, no single leader who could get corrupted, and no one person who can decide its future. The project really, truly belongs to everyone.
And this is the bottom line. All the theories we've talked about today, Peter Todd, Jack Dorsey, all of them, they're just theories. There is only one way, one single way, this mystery could ever be solved for good. It's called cryptographic proof. Someone would have to either sign a message or move coins using the private keys from Satoshi's original wallets.
And here we are. After 15 years, thousands of articles, a bunch of documentaries, and just endless speculation, that proof has never come. The ghost is still a ghost, and that $70 billion fortune is still sitting there completely untouched. So that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. Maybe the most revolutionary thing about Bitcoin isn't the code at all. Maybe it's the fact that its creator was smart enough to just disappear and let their creation truly stand on its own. What do you think?